What happens if I break this contract? What happens if I leave this contract to try to shoot for this one and make so much more money? So welcome back to No Ordinary Path, everybody. My name's John. I'm an ICU travel nurse. Today is a Real Talk Tuesday, specifically a travel nurse takeover. If you're new to the channel, on Tuesdays here, we try to do tips and tricks. Sometimes it's RV related, travel related, family related. Today it's travel nurse related. On Sundays are our episodes where we just kind of bring you our story and that kind of stuff. I wanted to talk today about a serious conversation I have had for my own reasons and thoughts, and I've lately had a ton of people reaching out to me saying, hey, I'm in this contract making yay money, mediocre level money, and all the crisis rates are coming back out for all these COVID contracts now, where we're starting to see the $8,000 to $10,000 a week stuff again. What happens if I break this contract? What happens if I leave this contract to try to shoot for this one and make so much more money? Well, I wanted to know that for myself, and I've actually run into this situation before back in Asheville. I had a 6-month contract there where we extended, and the second part of the extension, the pay rate dropped significantly because the crisis rates dropped. And I said, hey, if we can get in, at the crisis rates, if they go back up again, I want back to that rate. And sure enough, they did. Long story short, and you can go watch the review and all that kind of stuff for this hospital back up here, I don't know. Long story short, they did go up. They didn't give me the money. I was pretty darn upset about it. I called my recruiter and said, I'm significantly thinking about backing out of this contract because I feel like I'm getting hosed here. And I learned a little bit of this stuff that I'm going to talk about, but I didn't really dive that real deep into it. I ended up deciding to stay, just stick it out, because I only had, like a month left anyway, so whatever. But with all the new stuff coming again and all these questions that, I've been receiving lately, I wanted to really understand the back end. What are the consequences? What does happen if a nurse breaks their contract to go try to make more money, or for maybe a reason that's not about money? Maybe it's like, I don't feel safe working in the conditions that I'm working in. What are the consequences? What happens? Here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about, something called the DNR list, which I think is lovely and ironic. Fees. And then finally, reasons to back out. So starting right off, there's what we call the DNR list. So this stands for do not rehire. And when a nurse decides to break a contract, what I'm going to talk about here specifically are people that choose to do this for reasons that aren't related to risk. So if you're choosing to just back out without reasonable cause, because you want to go chase more money or something like that. So this is not like a medical related. This is not unsafe practice related. This is just you backing out of the contract. They place you on this list, and what happens is the facility places you on it as a do not rehire. The vendor, which is the kind of overseeing umbrella corporation that covers all of these different jobs, places you on the do not hire list, and then your agency will often do the same. So from that point on, you sort of burn yourself in that agency, and most people figure this out, at least at an agency level. They say, well, I'm backing out of this contract. The agency's not going to like me anymore, but there's tons and tons of agencies out there. The problem with this is that even if you switched to a different agency, as I found out, the vendor that still holds all these jobs still has you on that list. So you can spend all the time and effort to onboard to a new agency, submit to a totally different job in a different location, different hospital, maybe even a different hospital system. But that job is still listed with a single vendor who immediately, as soon as they get your application, runs through their list and it gets dinged back to them as you're on the DNR list. It gets sent back to that agency and says, no, he's not eligible or she's not eligible for rehire. And then the recruiter goes, hey, why are you on this list? And then you have to explain yourself and why, which I'm sure is an awkward situation. That's only half of the equation. The other half, and probably the more sensitive half, are the fees that are associated with this. This is where I was really kind of surprised. I figured there was something like the do not hire list, and to make that a little bit more clear, maybe understand and look at it like this. If I worked for an HCA hospital like the one in Asheville, North Carolina, and then I wanted to try to go and work for one in Denver, if I was on that list and I switched agencies and everything, no one knew about it, and then tried to go work in the one in Denver, I would come back as not eligible to be hired because I backed out of the one in Asheville. It just is a big corporation list thing. And some of these vendors have multiple systems. It may not just be HCA hospitals. It might be HCA and Crondelet Health and Adventist Health and so forth and so on. You just don't know. So it's a little bit of a gamble on the nurse's part. But anyway, back to the fees. This is where it kind of gets sensitive and, kind of a difficult issue to understand. When a nurse leaves a hospital without reasonable cause, again, the facility bills and fines fees to the vendor and the agency. And those fees can range from hundreds of dollars to sometimes thousands of dollars. I was told about an instance where there was a nurse that backed out of a contract and the facility billed the agency for that entire rest per hour, the rate that they were going to pay that travel nurse for the entire rest of the contract. And it was fairly early on, and so the fee was over $10,000. So it can get pretty significant. The hard part about it is it's not just the XYZ agency cutting a check. That fee trickles down to their employees who are responsible for the travel nurse. So it might be the compliance or the client manager, and it's definitely the recruiter. And that fee is not, it's literally taken out of their paychecks. So when a nurse chooses to do this, there are some unforeseen consequences that maybe they don't understand. And that was what I found really interesting, was that, you can really not just burn an agency, but you can really hurt a person potentially trying to do this. Because that can be a pretty significant fee to be taken out of paychecks. If it was me, that would hurt. To have to trust somebody and then have something come back like that, and that would hurt a little bit. And so it kind of comes down to integrity a little bit on the nurse's part. Basically, what my recruiter told me was that if I'm hiring a nurse, I'm trusting that nurse to take this contract that they have signed and to finish that contract. It's a trust agreement, and there's a little bit of risk with it that I never knew about, and I found that pretty interesting. Now, knowing all that, I cannot tell you whether or not to back out of a contract or something like that. I do firmly believe that there are reasons to do so. If you are faced with a unsafe situation, whether that be patient scenarios like the ratio is too high, or they're not giving you proper PPE, or they're making you do things outside of your contract, stuff like that, then that is a legitimate reason. And there are times where, as long as it is documented adequately by the nurse and presented to the agency can use your documentation to fight whatever fees they may be fined by the facility. So my advice to you is, if you are one of those people who feel like they're in a situation like that, by all means, make sure that you are recording these events that happen. And it probably isn't going to be like 1 or 2 days of, this was crummy. Probably a week, maybe even 2, in order to say, look, I see a pattern here. This is not just some bad day at work. Something's going on. I don't feel safe. This is what's happening to my agency. Here you go. The agency will not put you on a blackball list there. They're not going to put you on the DNR list because you've got legitimate reasons. Still can't say anything for the vendor, I was told, and for the facility, that's kind of up to that specific facility. But at least you know that you did right by your agency and by the recruiter that you had been working with. Knowing all those things, you guys, I cannot tell you again, emphasize that I cannot tell you whether it's right for you to break a contract. That really is a decision upon your own. Just know that even if you do it for the right reasons, there may still be consequences. This does happen. I know that there are nurses that have done some stuff. I've been told stories about people that have called in and said, I need to leave for mental reasons or physical reasons, or I've got family that's sick, and then 2 or 3 days later, the recruiters see them on the forums trying to search new jobs that are higher paying jobs. Everybody's on social media, you guys. That's how a lot of travel nurses find their gigs, and all the recruiters are on there too. Sometimes so are the agencies. I mean, they know that this kind of stuff happens. So just think long and hard before you do make a pretty drastic decision, unless it's something that is obviously a risk to you in your practice. I would be lying if I told you that it had never crossed my mind, because certainly with these crazy rates, I think about how that money could benefit me and benefit my family. And I understand, you know, when you're working and you find out the next nurse that's coming in is making, you know, another grand more than you are every week, that's tough. I get that. And so I'd be lying if I'd say it's never crossed my mind. But now that I know a little bit more about the consequences, especially the fees, because that really hit home, I would have to think long and hard and make sure that you did it for all the right reasons. I just want to say real quick that if you are in search of an agency that you know has your back and that is really a good, strong recruiter, or that you want a really good, strong recruiter to work with, I plug my recruiter on Atlas, Tasha Sage, all the time, because she just really is tops. She works with us. I really trust her 100%, and I feel like she's totally got my back. If I ever was in a situation like that where I needed to back out of a contract, she knows that I'm not going to do it for the wrong reasons. If you're looking for somebody that, you know, you could try to establish a relationship like that with, just reach out to me. Leave a comment below and let me know. I'm happy to pass on the information. Anyway, guys, as we wrap up, leave a thumbs up for the video. That always helps. Like, if you're new, subscribe. Let me know below too. And we hope you continue to keep watching. We've got some more awesome stuff coming out. Some really fun trip-related episodes as we went through Utah and Colorado and all these places getting down here to Phoenix. As you can tell, the beard is gone. Haircut's a little bit different now. Work starts in a few days, so had to, you know, clean up and freshen up, get ready to dive back into it. But that's about it, guys. See you out there.